Hey everybody, before we get into the podcast, I just want to let you know about our sponsor. It's a film called Sir John A. and the Curse of the Anti-Quenched. It's a fun film and you can get it on Vimeo on demand right now for only $2.99. Check out curseoftheantiquenched.com.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
Welcome to the Raiders of the Lost Commentary podcast.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
The unofficial commentary for your favorite
Get to the chopper!
and not so favorite films.
The famous comedian Arnold Braunschweiger.
Starring your hosts Adam and Matt.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Start your movie in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. This week we have another special, two guests actually. On the podcast this week I have Matt Routledge and Zara Phythian. I knew I would screw it up. But anyways, we're talking about their film, Tribal Get Out Alive. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks for having us on.
Of course. So I thought I'd just maybe start off and have you each introduce yourselves and give a little background on yourselves in the film business, how you got into it, and all that.
Do you want to go first, Matt?
I can go first, yeah, sure. Well, basically, I started off by doing a media production course at university. After that, I always wanted to do martial arts films, so I started trying to put myself in homemade videos of martial arts that I would get my friends to shoot. Did a couple of show reels, managed to try and shoot a TV pilot quite a long time ago, about 20 years ago, and somehow the show reel ended up in the hands of Sammo Hung, who was casting for Jackie Chan movie, got picked to be in a Jackie Chan movie, and from there on in, I've just been working as a stuntman, sometimes as a stunt coordinator, sometimes as a fight choreographer. So that's pretty much my background. I've always been obviously influenced by martial arts films and always would love to make martial arts films. And recently I've fallen more into the directing side and the action directing side, which obviously it's taken quite a few years to get me to where I am now. But, very pleased that I'm getting the opportunity to finally get to direct feature films, of which Tribal is pretty much the first.
Your first feature film you've ever directed? Oh, okay. Well, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Yay! Woo! They did an awesome job. Yeah, you did an awesome job.
Thanks.
So I play the role of Caitlin in Tribal, and my background really started in martial arts. I've done martial arts since I was 7 years old, and started in Shotokan karate, and then sort of cross-trained in kickboxing, taekwondo, and other styles. And I used to compete around the world, which I used to love. I used to love the traveling aspect of that. And I was spotted in America and was invited to come over and take part in a low-budget sci-fi film, at which point I had no interest in sort of acting or, being in front of the camera. It was just all about my sort of, competitive career. That was my main focus at that time. But when I came back to the UK after kind of being over there for 4 or 5 weeks, a lot of my friends in the martial art industry were screen fighters, or they were working in stunts and then started working in sort of commercials and TV stuff. And I sort of fell into that with them and kind of found the bug for sort of acting and stunt work and choreographing fights and just kind of getting into all of that really. And then from there got an agent and just started picking up jobs, and then decided to kind of end my competitive career and just really focus on working as an actor and a stunt performer. Which has been amazing for the last sort of 10 years or so. And then fast forward a few years, I've known Matt for many years, and Matt was actually on board of one of the very first features that I worked on, which was really cool back in the day. And it was called Underground back then, actually. I think it got renamed to 12. But anyway, moving forwards, and that's how I met Matt. And then myself and my partner approached Matt and see if he'd like to sort of direct Tribal because of his action background and his love of martial arts and action. And he's a great guy, got a great eye for action, and we thought he'd be the ideal person to direct Tribal. So that's how we kind of collaborated and got together on this.
Well, that's a good segue then to bring up just like where the initial idea for Tribal came. And I'm also very intrigued by the locations you got in the film. They're obviously like amazing production value you managed to get out of all of that. So maybe you can talk a bit about that. Like, what's the the initial thing that brought this project to put it onto a script and decide we want to make this thing, and then how did you get it made at that point? Like, bring me through some of that process.
I think that's more for you, Z, isn't it, to start off?
Yeah, it's kind of both. I'll start that off because then Matt came on board as well. So basically, Vic wrote the initial concept of Tribal, and I had some input in that as well. So the original concept is quite different from the story now, from Tribal as it is today. But I think we had some good ideas, and some of those elements and the characters were kept in the story now in Tribal. So we kind of had a few of the cast members in mind, and some of them were already cast. People like Ross O'Hennessy, who plays Brad, Thomas Dodd, who plays Rich Kenning, Rachel Warren, and Grayson Matthews. So there's a few of the cast members that were already kind of in place with the original story. And then we approached Matt to be the director because we thought he'd be perfect for the job. And Matt was able, because initially Tribal was very much horror based, and when Matt came on board, he sort of added more action in there. He then sort of took it to a scriptwriter and editor, Johnny Walker, who rewrote the story of Tribal and gave it a different structure. And it sort of had a better blend of horror and action. So there was definitely more action scenes in there, thanks to Matt. But Matt had quite a big deal, as well as Thomas Dodd and Natalie Burns, our production manager, in finding the locations in Liverpool. So I'll let Matt talk to you about the locations in Liverpool.
Yeah, we got some fantastic locations. It also a privilege for me to film in pretty much my hometown of Liverpool, which was great. To do a martial arts film there is a double privilege. But we got some places such as the old Williamson tunnels, which is the underground of Liverpool. That's very, very rarely seen. There was another tunneling area which was the Dingle tunnels, which is also an underground train and rail system that's not been used for quite a number of years. And they have, as you can see in the film, they just give such a tremendous look. Even cinematically, they look great. When you light it in the right way, it really brings across that atmosphere. When everybody watches the film, it speaks for itself when you see the locations. So we were very, very lucky. We found an enormous amount of the underground locations in Liverpool. So, very lucky, because you'd normally spend a fortune trying to build a set like that, I think, in real life.
Yeah, when I watched it, I thought maybe they knew they could get these locations, so they wrote around it. But I'm guessing, like, it was in the script, it was kind of indescriptive or undescriptive underground tunnels, and then whatever we find, we're gonna kind of rewrite and tweak to fit. Or
I think the original story that Vic wrote, we sort of based it on the Nottingham caves and the underground system in my hometown. And I think when Johnny Walker rewrote the story and the script, we sort of kept that underground element to it. So I don't think we didn't necessarily have the tunnels or the locations at that point, but we just knew that it was going to be this sort of underground layer. And Matt obviously knows Liverpool very well, as does Thomas. And I think not just the underground locations, but some of the other locations that we use, like Lister Library and Allerton Towers and these other places that we were able to film in. These guys kind of location scouted for, those guys put a lot of time in finding the right locations. And there were some locations that these guys did find. They were like, oh, that's cool, but actually, let's keep looking. Let's get something more impressive, or that really sort of stands out. And those guys did a really great job. And the Dingle Tunnel was a great find as well, wasn't it, Matt?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we obviously, some of the tunneling looks slightly different. But it all works for the film in the way the film flows, because obviously some are thin, some are larger, some are darker, some are brighter, and I think it all blends in very well when you see the film. Dingle particularly had some really useful. We found a couple of areas of the tunnel that we could use a specific area of it as well, and there's a very nice shot, I think, near the end of the film. I don't know, am I allowed to say spoilers? I probably am, aren't I?
I've seen the film, so but yeah, I'm sure if people The spoilers
Yeah,
will be in it, but go see the movie or go
yeah.
check it out.
Yeah, there's a nice shot near the end where they're trying to break out, let's say, and it just looks a very cinematic shot of them trying to escape. So hopefully everyone can look out for that shot when they watch the movie.
Now, so knowing you're going to be shooting in these tunnels, and Zara, you can maybe speak to this. Like planning out like a fight choreography for tunnels can't be easy, right? Like one, it's all like hard surfaces. Where are people going to fall? Do you want to maybe talk about how you choreograph something kind of dangerous in a tight space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Matt was very particular about the tunnels that we were going to use for the fight scenes as well. So we already had a vision of where or what kind of tunnel we needed for a particular fight scene. So when the guys and myself were sort of choreographing the fights, we weren't thinking too much about which tunnel that was in at that particular time, but we then kind of rejigged the choreography and we tweaked it here and there for the location that then Matt said, no, this is where we're going to shoot this scene. So then we had a better idea of how to kind of establish that choreography and where that was going to be placed in the environment. So we kind of initially, when we were building the fight choreography, just kind of thought about the fighting style and the story of the fight. Whether one character is winning the fight at the beginning, or if it's quite evenly matched, or if it's going to be a kind of a quick kill fight scene, or if it's going to be sort of more lengthened out. So initially we weren't thinking about the locations, but I know that was very much on Matt's mind. And then when we did sort of have the locations confirmed for where we were filming, then yeah, you're absolutely right. Some of them are, hard floors and things like that. So, and I mean, depending on what the characters are wearing. So myself in the film, I've got like a little sort of tank vest on and pants. So it's quite hard to wear kind of elbow pads or anything like that you need to help with those falls and things.
Even
but
kicking
it was cool.
in those boots, like in like combat boots, are they hard to throw those kicks in?
That is a very good question. Nobody ever asked me about costume and wardrobe and boots. So I have quite small feet, really, compared to the sort of average person. And I always have footwear that is like 2 sizes too big. And in anything, even if it's, a big Hollywood production or whatever, the footwear is always not an issue, but this always it never fits. So yeah, the boots were a little bit big for me, to be fair. So that was quite awkward. But I mean, the trousers were cool, and it was it looked good. It looked good for the character. So we just kind of suck it up and get on with it.
Do you rehearse wearing the gear, or do you just rehearse in like a gi or whatever?
So when we did the initial rehearsals, it was kind of relaxed and kind of, joggers, t-shirt, just normal kind of gym stuff. But then we did rehearse in some of the wardrobe as well. And then when we got to set, obviously the rehearsals that we did were in wardrobe and in costume as well. But the initial kind of rehearsals, we were just kind of thinking about building the fight, building the story, and then we adapted to the location and then obviously what restraints the wardrobe might have or not. But yeah, that's a good question. Nobody ever asked that question. I
always wonder that. I've done nowhere near the amount of martial arts you've done. I just recreational stuff, and I always kind of wonder that. I'm like, how do you kick in those shoes? I'm like, I have hard enough time just like wearing Converse. But on that same topic, do you want to talk about the challenges like doing something with martial arts with everyone wearing prosthetics? Like obviously there's the infected people, the zombies or what have you. And that's, I know that like just keeping like prosthetics on people, I know from experience, is its whole other challenge in and of itself, especially I'm sure in those environments. And I mean, now it's a little easier with LED lights. You don't have to worry about the heat of some of the bigger lights, but like, yeah, if they're moving around, they're having to fight, like that's going to bend and crack. And I don't know if you want to talk a bit about that or.
Yeah, we to be honest, we did very well with that. I think there's a couple of bits where, obviously we learned to become aware that if you put the makeup on too early, it will start coming off.
Right.
Particularly when it comes to the prosthetic scars and stuff. So yeah, I mean, in some scenes, obviously, I think I remember the scene where Zara was having a fight, where I call it the butcher scene, and one of the characters. Obviously, the amount of physical movements he's got to do, we were struggling sometimes to keep the prosthetics on. But, that's part and parcel of any film, I would imagine.
Yeah.
In dealing with that kind of issue. But, Yeah, so I think makeup did a great job. Diane, who did the makeup, she did a fantastic job. And obviously some scenes we had a large number of, let's say, the creatures. And obviously there was multiple makeup artists doing multiple, should I say, face treatments? That's the polite way of saying it on each character. So we had to make each one look a bit different, whether it's a scar on the cheek, one on the head, covering up partially an eye. Obviously, this was quite a big job to get them to do so many of them, particularly on the days when we had quite a lot of extras. But for me, I enjoyed working with prosthetics. I thought it was great. And, fingers crossed, hopefully when you see it on screen, it all looks realistic.
It was quite interesting to see how they did make everybody look different, because some of them had boils and kind of big things coming off them, and some of them were a little bit tamer and looked a bit more normal, if you like, and then maybe some scars and stuff. So that was quite interesting. I think as well, just from my sort of experience with it, it depends on how much you sweat and how much of the physical movement you're doing. So some of the guys were kind of doing a lot of physical stuff, so it was kind of like, stop touching it, don't touch it.
Right.
And I think if you're not used to wearing prosthetics, that's another element to it as well, because it can it can irritate you, and if you're sweating and it's hot and things, you kind of want to itch your face, and then you can't because you're going to pull the whole thing off. So I guess it's that if you're not used to wearing it, then it becomes a bit more difficult for that person. But the makeup girls were definitely on top of that, passing everybody down and making sure it was all good. So
with those extras, did you hire stunt people first and foremost, or just anyone that was willing to come out? And if you just hired like normal Joes off the street, like, was there any training involved? Because like some of them have to take some pretty big falls or jumps or what have you, right?
We were very particular about having anybody who had any of the fights or falls was a martial artist, or they had experience in performing before. So anybody that was sort of a featured creature or more backgrounds, they weren't necessarily fighting, but they had to kind of move in a certain way. So Matt was sort of directing them in their kind of animalistic movement and how he wanted them to perform. But they weren't necessarily in the fight sequences. They might have had to run or move, but they weren't in the fights. But anybody that was taking part in the fight was either a martial artist, had screen experience, or stunt experience before.
Okay, that's great. How many days did you guys spend on set? Do you want to kind of bring me through what like a normal day of production looked like?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. How many days did we do? Would it have been 30 days, was it?
I think it was 33. We actually had 34 days, but one day we were just rained off and we didn't shoot on one particular day. So it was, I think it was 33 days in total that we had on. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is some days we weren't, some days were overlong and we had ridiculously long days. Whereas others were a lot shorter because we were, dictated to sometimes by the location in terms of you'd have set number of hours you had to have it shot within that time. So the hours fluctuated sometimes from day to day. It wasn't always like a 9 till 6 or a 9 till 7. Some was like a 9 till 4, or occasionally if it's a scene everybody knew we had to work on and it was a difficult scene, then we had to have people stay longer on that particular day.
Is this like in the UK, is there union rules with stunt performers? Like you can only have, like, I know here in Canada, like if it's an actor gig and they're actor stunt performers, like you can't go past a certain time, or certain people aren't allowed on set for X amount of times. Are the rules as strict there, or is this like kind of a non-union gig?
It was a non-union gig, this particular one, and I think when you're doing those type of films, sometimes you unfortunately you have to use a lot of non-union, say, stunt performers as well, because particularly in our country, if sometimes if you are union and you work on a non-union film, there's a bit of a stigma attached to you.
There's politics.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, here too, right? Like, there's politics attached to it. I don't know about politics, I would say, but there's just, like, they make it incredibly difficult for a small production to go take place, you know? Like you have to come in minimum like $1 million to have like two guys talking in a room kind of a movie, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
What we did do, we did make sure that we met the equity minimum standard for the actors. So they got the minimum, you know, rate for what
Scale
they were doing.
rate, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Matt's right. So if they weren't necessarily performers here, they were on the stunt register, but they all had martial art backgrounds. So we knew that we could either do extra training with them or they had previous experience or training. So it was safer for us to bring those people in. So like you sort of suggested, we didn't just bring anybody in that was willing just to come and work for free or, for do it at a different or lower rate. It was people that we knew had that experience, even though they weren't necessarily on the stunt register.
You kind of need that too, right? Just one, like if you know you're up against the clock in all these locations, you don't want to bring anyone in that might ruin a bunch of shots for you, especially if you're throwing your body all over the place. There's only so many takes you can do before you're like, all right, we got to wrap it up here, right? Or so curious to know, Zara, you had mentioned that you actually used to compete in martial arts. I'm curious to know what the transitional sort of technique I might say, like from actual fighting to screen fighting, and how those two things are very different. At least I think, and like how some screen punches, like I don't know. I watched a fair bit of UFC, and it's exciting for its own reasons, but like definitely not as exciting as more of like a Jackie Chan, more of like a dance choreography, if you would.
Yeah, different flow. And I think because I used to compete in kind of forms and traditional kata and weapons, I think that side of my competition career, and for many of my friends in the industry, so people like Chloe Bruce, for example, and Ashley Beck, and all these, great UK stunt performers, they had like a forms background, not necessarily just fighters, even though they could fight as well. So I think that's important. I mean, I've done quite a lot of seminars, kind of screen fighting seminars, and worked with different people of different backgrounds. And the ones that are kind of real fighters, if that makes sense, or have been in the ring, they've been on the mats, or whatever, it's much harder to transition to screen fighting because it's just different timing and distance and range is completely different. Whereas if you have a background in more performance, and that's I guess where kind of the kata and the patterns and the forms come in, you're used to kind of performing and having things sort of choreographed or routines and that kind of thing. And there is a big difference, and some people find that quite tough. So I think because I had that sort of element as well, and that experience, that background, it was kind of an easy transition. So I just kind of took that performance experience and then tried to use that in front of the camera and use that experience and that confidence as well. But
it's funny, like you see like martial artists that transition to like acting on screen, and they do a movie, and it's like they're fighting and the movie doesn't seem to always translate, but for whatever reason, like when wrestlers transition, it always seems to look a little better. I don't know why, just like that's just maybe a personal...
It's kind of a showcase, isn't it? Like if you watch like wrestling shows and stuff, it's kind of the characters and the story and the performance.
Yeah, it's more of a show. Yeah,
it's about the wrestling as well, but there's a kind of build up to it. And I think with martial artists or fighters, you focus on the fight, winning the fight, and you fight game and strategy and all this kind of stuff, and you're not thinking about what people are watching, or you might be thinking about your style or how you fight and your particular way, but you're not thinking about characters or story. Or I think it's a different element, and that entertainment element of that definitely translates well to film, doesn't it, from the wrestlers that have done that.
Yeah, and then to be fair, now with like MMA, there is a fair bit of pageantry itself, but do you guys want to talk a bit about releasing the movie during a pandemic, and like was that a decision you guys had, like this was going to release anyways, coming up, or like was there ever any talk like should we hold off? Or
it's a touchy subject, this one, isn't it? It's
sure,
well, me as a filmmaker, obviously any director would love to see the film on the big screen. It's where films are meant to be seen, in my opinion. No matter what film you make, you always want to see it on the big screen, big premiere,
big sound too. That's what I miss. Yeah,
and so obviously it was disheartening that it did get like an online screening for its opening screening, but at the same time, I have to understand we're in extreme circumstances at the moment with what's going on in the world, and obviously that is the bigger picture. The safety of everybody is the most important, and films obviously naturally will come secondary. For all of us, I think it must have been a very stressful time, because it's trying to think, are we going to be able to make the sales if the film markets are not actually taking place, because obviously we haven't been able to get to the amount of markets we would have been if COVID wasn't there. So obviously that can probably restrict on sales, but hopefully that will pick up in the coming months, as hopefully we're getting a bit more to grips with what's going on. But also there's a huge market now online. Netflix, Amazon, the streaming platforms are getting bigger and bigger. The budgets for those movies are getting bigger and bigger. And, even though, yes, we could say Tribal is a low budget film, it certainly can hold its own on one of those platforms. So I think, the negative side is obviously COVID hit. It's been a big problem, but we have kind of somehow got through it. And I think we still have managed to gain sales on the film throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, there seems to be like a bit of momentum, and especially now it's been released in the UK as well. It's kind of a little bit of a snowball effect, which is really cool. But from the outset, the goal was always to, the pre-production, shoot the film. Once principal photography was done, get it into post straight away, and we want to get it out there as quick as possible. We don't want to be one of those films where we're kind of waiting 3-4 years later down the line and there's still kind of pickups to do, or there's still kind of editing things that we're focusing on. So Matt was very much aware of that at the start when Matt came on board, that we wanted to sort of get this out and done in a quick time, or the quickest time possible, but without sort of jeopardizing any of the quality of the film. So I think we still wanted to get the film out there regardless of COVID or not, but obviously we just had to adapt and change the way that was released initially.
Yeah, like your marketing almost completely changes now. Like yeah. It's just in a way it's kind of good. People are home looking at their screens, but it's like I don't know. It's tough. I'm genuinely just curious, like how people are dealing with that right now. But that's a good transition to talk about. You were talking about just trying to turn it around kind of quick. How long did you guys spend in post on this? And if you want to bring me through a bit of that, the editing process.
I'll just quickly talk about how long we were filming for, because then Matt was overseeing the post-production. So we filmed for like 33 days, but we had 3 sort of production blocks, or 3 shooting blocks. So we shot for a couple of weeks at a time. Then we had a break, and then which I think worked really well for us, especially with this low-budget film, because it allowed us to kind of see things that we needed or we'd missed. That allowed us to then skip that in for the next shooting block. So we shot in 3 blocks, which was really cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And then once those 3 blocks are done, it was basically over to Matt and over to sort of post. And then he oversaw that. So I'll let you sort of talk about that, Max. I think, was it about 3 months?
Yes, it was. I mean, it was on and off for about 2 to 3 months, I think, on post. Because obviously it went to the edit, and then I would obviously drive over to the editor's house. I'd sit there, I'd watch all the edits. We'd make some changes. Then he'd go back and he'd edit some more scenes, and that was basically the procedure. After that, once the edits were complete, we tried to get a picture lock in terms of just the video content from start to finish. So obviously I'd be showing it to Zara, to Vic, to Tom, and then once we all agreed that we were happy with the film, that's when it went to sound for sound design. And once we had the first rough cut, like the one without any sound effects or anything, that's when it went to Stefan, who was doing the music in Los Angeles. So he would be able to look at the first draft print, let's say, of the film, and he would just go through the whole film and do me a start to finish of all the music. So I was able to listen to the music while the sound design was being post-produced at the same time. So having the two of them working at the same time enabled us to basically get post-production finished a lot quicker. We obviously did a bit of a bit of revoicing as well in some scenes. And sound design came out great, I thought. It was all done in Manchester by Paul Munder, who's, very talented. He picks up on every single little nuance in terms of the sounds. And, there's even a couple of scenes where you hear light static, just the noise of the static. And, I'm very, very critical when it comes to music and sound design, because I know how much it can elevate a film. So, I was spending as much time as I possibly can to try and get it as best as it could be.
Yeah, we were for before obviously COVID hit and before post had finished, that we did have a screening though, didn't we, Matt, in Manchester, and we were able to see the film.
Oh, that's nice, at least.
Yeah, at least we did that. The sound was amazing, and the sound was really, really good. I think Paul was there, and he was like, "Oh, you know what? I need to do this, and I just want to add this, and I just want to tweak this." And I was like, "What are you talking about? That was great! I loved it." We just do this a little bit more. So, I think the main thing that we got from that test screening, because it was obviously done in the cinema with huge sound speakers, we knew straight away some of the punch and kick effects needed to be louder, which was, what we obviously were doing the test screening for, because we wanted to pick up on certain things. So we made those louder. And I had a listen to it last night on my friend's projector with his 5.1 system, and it really comes across all the punches and kicks, So if you've got a nice sound system, Tribal will certainly sound great, and epic. Yeah.
That's great. I like that. But to go back to filming 3 separate chunks at a time, I guess that affords you, in a way, like a way to get around not having to do pickup shoots and or reshoots. So, I also something that you brought up, talking about the editing. Showing the Zara the edits early on. Zara, is that something crucial for you to watch and edit, being a stunt performer, like to be able to gauge like, oh, this doesn't sell as well to me, I would use a different shot? Because sometimes, I don't know, editors, they'll look at something and then it makes sense in the computer or whatever in an edit, but then as a stunt performer you might say like, no, this is bad because of XYZ. Did that ever come up, or was it kind of like...
Absolutely. Totally get that. And there's stuff I've worked on in the past where, not just myself, but friends in the industry, have done incredible fight scenes and performances and stunt work. And then when it comes to the edit, it comes across totally different, or they've used maybe the wrong shot, or there was a better shot that that happened that we got, and the editor has used a different one or a different angle, and it just, you're like, oh man, you should have just used this bit. But that's why another reason why Matt was so crucial to coming on board of this, because we had that confidence in Matt that he was overseeing the edit, and he's got a really great eye for action, so he would be honest and say if something wasn't working right or if it was working right. So I had that confidence in him to do that. But I think a lot of times as a stunt performer, you don't really get to see the edits at all. It's only because I was one of the producers in the film as well that I had that, that little bit of luxury where we could kind of see how it was going and give a little bit of input along the way as well. But I think we totally trusted Matt on that as well to make any corrections, and if the editor was using a certain clip or a certain angle, he had his production notes, so he knew which ones we needed to use, which ones were the good takes, which ones were the better takes. So that was kind of covered. But yeah, usually you're totally right. You don't really get to oversee that or have that privilege unless you're kind of involved in the production side of things. So yeah, of course, like anyone who's working, you want your performance to be the best performance and you want it to come out great. And a lot of times the action in films is always the bit that gets cut back, especially for films running over time, because you want to build the story and the drama and etc. And it's always the sort of fight scenes or the action scenes that get a little bit, get dropped basically. So yeah, totally happy that Matt was on board to do that and had that confidence in him.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much for that. The other thing I would say as well is, for me as a director, I'm very lucky to have somebody like Zara and Tom who are, extremely physically proficient when it comes to the fights, ex-kickboxing champions, taekwondo champions, So I think when you watch the film, a couple of reviewers have picked up on this, and I'm glad they did. Is we've shot the fights wider so you can see the kicks better.
Yeah,
you
I
can
was
see
actually
them.
going to bring that up.
Yeah, and that was a conscious decision to show the performers doing what they could do, because I just didn't want to fall into the trap of these films where it's just chop edity and, it's cutting every split second and the wobbling the camera excessively just to accentuate the action, to make the performers speed up. We don't need to do that with the people we've got in this film. It just need to show them doing what they do. So that was, obviously the style in which we shot for Tribal.
Right, or it's the shots like the like when you show behind the one actor, you're like, well, that's not them doing that, and then you see the close up, they just like have like a aha kind of look, and then back to the behind them kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was always it's funny because like that is like a major criticism you always hear, like right, like Hollywood usually like they kind of do that a lot. And then, more like Jackie Chan and those types of Hong Kong type films, it's always wide shots. They're always showing off everything about it, and longer takes too. And I don't know. I've always found that it's like clearly this other way works better and people love it, but I don't know. Anyways, that's a whole other topic of conversation. Matt, you were talking about music and how music is very important to you. Like when you guys are editing and working on the film, do you work with temp tracks? Are you giving the composer, like I want it to feel like this, but have these elements, or like how involved do you get?
Absolutely. Yeah. I had about 3 to 5 sample tracks from films, and some of the films were 80s and 90s films. And I would call Stefan and I'd say, I'm going to send you some sample tracks to the film, but don't try and make it 80s or 90s. I want you to give it a modern feel, but just use the influences of the beats that you hear in these particular tracks. So that was one of the first things I did. I gave him some reference tracks from some films that I really liked.
What were the films?
There's some bizarre ones you wouldn't even think about. There was Commando, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film.
That's a good one.
There was Malone, a Burt Reynolds film, would you believe, which it's got some nice repetitive beats in there, which I liked. So certainly some ones you might not have thought of, but also I sent him the likes of Transformers, because the music's quite epic on that, to get that epic feel. So it's quite a mixture. And, when you've got the right person doing the music, they can always second guess what you want, and you're not having so much of a battle back and forth when they keep doing a track and you just think, no, that's not quite hit the spot. You want to do, change it to this. He seems to guess it pretty much 90% every time. So, that's obviously the blessing, but also you've got to pick the right people to work with at the same time. But obviously, in terms of music, like I was saying, it can really elevate the film, and I think in Tribal it does. But the other thing I like to do is try and give characters a signature tune. So we had a Caitlin theme for Zara's character, and we had a Kenning theme for Tom's character in the film, Rich Kenning. So that was something I always like to do with films, and not every director likes to do that. They just score the movie. So I was very specific with him in trying to adapt and try and get those particular styles and have them different for the different characters.
That's great. I've done similar things like that, like worked with temp tracks to send to a composer, but it's one composer I work with. She likes me to go through and do a commentary track and just talk out what I want in different parts of the score. Mm-hmm. And it's like, for whatever reason, like just talking it out, like a cue for that cut, this needs some type of whatever dramatic cue, we need tension here, and that seems to like go like a long way too. I don't know, that's just something that's worked for me in the past. But
that's cool.
Moving along, so okay, I want to get back to some of the decision to release during COVID, but I was curious to, did you shoot this having a distribution deal, like going into it, or did you shoot this completely independent and then Evolution picked it up after the fact, or?
Yes, completely independent. So obviously there's people that do it in different ways. That some might get distributor on board partway through production after showing some of the rushes. But for us, I think we were just so involved in trying to get the film done as a team that, you know, we just dedicated all our time just to try and get the film done. And I think the great thing is because we'd separated it into 3 blocks, I think by block 2, I think everybody had the feeling that we were creating something, fingers crossed, really good and very, very hopeful in terms of the quality of the film, from not just the acting, but obviously the technical side. So I think we were all quietly confident that we would find a distributor that would do it, and particularly with it being a genre film, there isn't as much risk as, say, a drama or a comedy, which can be risky, you know, whereas we're shooting like an action horror. So obviously I already had in mind a couple of distributors that I was thinking of. I think Zara and Vic also had some in mind, and it was just, I think we're just very lucky that we got Evolutionary Films interested, because they produce a similar quality of film in terms of high action content.
Yeah, that's great. And so independently funded too. I don't know if you're comfortable with saying rough budget numbers of what you guys spent on this, or like, you know, where the money came from. Is there grant systems in the UK like there is here, or is there like government funding?
But we had no access to that, so we were it was kind of the private investment in the film. And initially the budget was 50k. So when we approached Matt, I was like, right, Matt, we're going to do this film on 50k. And Matt looked at it as like, that's crazy.
You will make a short film for $50,000.
Yeah. So when we started filming, we had 50k to shoot the film. And then we realized that, look, if we want to really sort of push this film and do as much as we can with it, we need a little bit more investment. So there was a little bit more investment that came in on top of that. And then with the post-production, another probably 10 to 15 that came on top of that as well. So it's under 100k, it's pushing kind of 85.
I'll say, like, watching it, like, it definitely punches above its weight class, budget-wise, if that was the number. So congratulations to you guys for making it look expensive, right? And that's always the battle, right? Like, in the indie world, I know myself included, like, it's always making it look like every dollar you spend on screen looks like $10, right?
Yeah, and that was sort of our plan really from the outset, especially for Vic, because like, look, we've got 50k and let's make it look 250k. Let's make it look $500,000 with this money. But we obviously had a low budget, micro budget film, but we used resources as well. You know, we did favors. We had favors done for us, and people worked for lesser rates than they would do as, for kind of mates rates. And we pulled in lots of favors, lots of volunteers that helped us out with things. So we had a lot of support. And I think that was really testament to how well the film did, because it was such a team effort. Everybody collaborated, all the different departments were so invested in the film to kind of do the best that they could so we could get the best end quality products out there.
I love that term, mates rates. We say friends rates here, but mates rates, I like that. I'm gonna steal that. Matt, I wonder if you could speak to that and how you approach directing something on a low budget, and knowing going in you're working with a smaller amount of money, but trying to put as much on screen, and just talk about your process going into that.
Well, I think just touching a bit on the original script, I think the original script, there was some quite high concept scenes that I just don't know if we could have done on a low budget. So obviously when the script got changed, we knew what budget we were working with. We had to adapt it. And also that helped in terms of the action element. Sometimes the action doesn't cost huge amounts of money. You just have to make sure you know what you're doing. Don't use excessive wire work, because obviously that starts getting expensive. You're getting wire work teams in there. But yeah, I mean, we all knew what the budget was. When you look through the script, you're constantly looking at it to say, how, which are the days which are going to cost more than others. Which day do we need like lots of extras, lots of, makeup artists. And for me, the approach was pretty much the same, because once we had that script and the script was what we were going to shoot, I had every confidence we were going to shoot it, within budget. But sometimes certain things get out of hand, like maybe the day rains and you're doing an outdoor scene. So you're delayed on that, and then you'd have to shoot an extra half day or something because you've been cut into by something weather related, or maybe in a certain location you can only have X number of hours up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4, and you might need to get just those extra few hours in there to get the scene right. So you'd have to pick those up on another day, and I think that's how we worked throughout the film. But no, for me, I knew we could shoot it with the budget we had.
I think what you did as well, Matt, is we made sure that we didn't have too many special effects in terms of like CGI and post-production, because that obviously adds to the budget as well. So Jane Hyman made all the prosthetics for us, and she's a makeup artist that worked before as well, and she's incredible at effects. So she came on board and made everything for us in that sense. That was really great. And even the explosion in the film, it's not CGI, it's a real explosion. So we tried to do everything in the best possible way within the budget, but, to the best effect.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw the explosion and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm like, some of it looks good and real, but I'm like, it looks like they actually might have done it, but I was wondering if it was just one really good effect, because I've seen some pretty convincing explosions in films.
No, it's 100% real. I'll tell you what.
Did you shoot that last, hoping just in case,
Yeah, when you see an explosion in a film that doesn't look real, it really doesn't look real.
It does. I know what you mean.
And I hate to say it, there's been a couple of action films been released recently, and the budgets are 2 or 3 million or something, and you see the explosions, and sometimes the fire turns green, and you're like, well, that's not right, and you can tell a mile off if it's fake. So 100%. The one thing I hate is CGI. That's the one thing I really don't like. So coming into the film, I just wanted to use it as subtly as possible. And I think the bits we have used it in the film are very subtle. The blood splashes are not huge. They're quite small in the ones that we've obviously had to digitally recreate. But certainly the explosion, 100% real.
That's great. That's great. I appreciate that. And it's on it. Look, as somebody, my background is a bit of VFX too, and so I know going into shots, I'm like, okay, yeah, look, we can probably pull this off. But like, I've had a few people approach me in the past, and they hand you a script, and you're like, you're never gonna do this with CGI. It's just not gonna happen. Not with the amount of money you have. Just like build a prop, find somebody that can make something. Do it for real. I don't know. I know, like, there's, like, always the back and forth, like, Chris Nolan's always the guy, right? Like, I want to do everything real in camera, but, there are some good, convincing CGI, but, like, it's just time and place, the right thing for the right shot, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, moving on to your marketing and all that, obviously, you were saying everything's kind of had to change because of COVID, of going to, like, the film markets and whatnot. So, do you want to talk about how you guys got hooked up with Ross at Evolution Films? Obviously, for any new listeners, Ross was on the podcast a few episodes ago talking about his film, and we got into lots of great conversations about distribution and in the film markets and whatnot. But maybe you guys can just let me know, like, how did you guys get hooked up with him?
I think we've both known Ross for many years, haven't we, Matt?
Yes.
Many years. I know Matt's worked with him as well before. Ross was directing a film that I worked on years ago called Warrior S, and we've got similar friends and connections in the industry and things like that. So it's quite a small world, really, isn't it? So we've both known Ross for a long time, and I think when we were trying to figure out, okay, who are we going to approach, who are we going to go to, I think that, if I'm right in saying, Mike Leader might have suggested to go to Evolutionary Films because of the type of films that they sell and they distribute. It was very similar to what we were doing with Tribal as well. So I think it was kind of, mutual connections and sort of friendships and things like that sort of put us towards Evo. And then, Matt suggested them as well. Yeah, and they, when we approached them, they loved the film and wanted to take it. So that was great.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought you were going to say something there, Matt. But I mean, that's great. And obviously, finding like a place for your film to live is an achievement in and of itself, right? Especially when you set out not having any home for it just yet. But maybe bring me through some of the marketing campaigns and strategy you guys had. Like, did you guys start any type of social media while filming or before? Or like, is it just after the fact that you're dealing with, trying to promote it? Or
I have a funny story for you, Adam. So on set when we were filming, so Vic, one of the producers, is all about marketing. He's all about social media. He's all about building a fan base. So he was like, come on, Matt, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And Matt was like, no, don't show anything. Nothing. Don't let anything out. And Vic was like, we want to, tease the audience. We want to kind of build the fan base. And I think we did that really well with our sort of fan book, Facebook like page and things like that. So we worked really hard to kind of build that audience and fan base and build the sort of anticipation for the film as well. So that was great. And then also, but not being able, sort of not giving too much away and too soon, but kind of having it, a little bit of a strategy to kind of in a timely manner, kind of put out little clips or behind the scenes or, cast interviews or just stills from the film and things like that. And that was kind of a gradual process. But I think definitely, especially in today's age, social media, building that sort of platform on social media, I think has been essential and a great part of the film marketing, because there's a lot of people that were interested in the film before we even finished filming. And then obviously everybody who's worked on the film now, they all have their social media circles. And I think that's really helped to push the film out there and create this momentum and this kind of snowball effect. But I think social media, regardless if that's, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever that is, it's so important. And I think there was a time when you wouldn't put anything out because everything was top secret and you wouldn't want to do that. But I think now you sort of need to kind of drip feed a little bit of something to get that interest and engagement. So that was kind of the plan from the outset, but not to give too much away and to sort of have that gradual build up to the release of the film.
Yeah, I've gone that, like, Matt, I can sort of relate. Like, if you're making something, you're just like, I can't think about this right now. This is too much. I'm dealing with too much right now. But, like, I know myself, like having done the not talk about it at all until it's ready, and then you're playing catch up the whole time. So,
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, obviously, marketing is not my forte, and it is definitely Vic's forte, one of the producer on the film. I totally understand whenever somebody says to me about marketing, I totally get it. And the fact that you have got to start pushing it out and like Zara was saying, drip feed people gradually so it builds up that momentum, the interest. But like you say, I'm just totally focused on the film. But at the same time, you do have to have that online presence and start building that online presence, because it's so important now because everything is online. Gone are the days when it was a poster in a video shop window. That just doesn't happen anymore. You got lobby cards in the cinema, and that was the only way you knew what was coming. You saw these 8 lobby cards in the window. Everything now is just totally social media based and dependent as well. And like Zara was saying, we're fortunate enough to have quite a big cast in the film. They're all sharing it with their friends. Hopefully their friends will see it, and it'll just have that snowball effect in the fact that we're getting to reach this wider audience just through social media.
Did you guys have... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's hard sometimes to kind of control maybe some of the cast or crew that are so excited because they want to show something. So we were very mindful and had a bit of a watch out. People have signed NDAs and stuff. So we had a private production group as well. So we were very aware that people want to sort of promote something and say what they've been doing and what they've been working on as well. So we were quite mindful of that. So in our private production group on Facebook, we would give them kind of certain stills or little clips that they could then post out. So that it was kind of... people knew what they could post or what they could say instead of kind of, giving out spoilers or posting things they shouldn't. Or, there's certain characters in the film that people didn't know because they'd not seen the film or seen anything of that. And we wanted to kind of hide that to a certain point, and just, you know, we had a strategy in place to kind of release certain images or characters at a certain point. So we wanted to make sure that we could kind of have control of that, but also give everybody something that they could, you know, put out themselves, because again, everybody's on social media. They want to sort of say, you know, I've been working on this, I've been doing this, and a lot of times you go, oh, I'm working on this, but I can't say anything. So we were very aware of that as well, but we hopefully tried to manage that in the best way that we could without sort of giving spoilers away at the wrong time.
That's all social media, right? It's just people saying they're about to do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe just my friend group that just talks about doing stuff and doesn't do stuff. Just kidding, friends.
Yeah.
Does how much does Evolutionary Films do for you guys marketing wise? How much is it up to you? Do you want to talk a bit about like their role in the marketing of the film?
So they have like a little bit of a marketing plan, but it's not just down on those guys. It's our film, and we feel that as much as they're, you know, our sales agent and distributor, they'll do, you know, things to a certain degree. I think it's also important as a filmmaker and, you know, for your own film to make sure you're pushing that and you're marketing that yourself as well, but not just relying on Evolutionary Films. They've done a great job. They've put out different clips, and they've got kind of a strategy and a time frame and a time plan of when they're going to release certain things, and in contact with us about that, so we know what they're doing and when they're doing it. But I think it's very much a case of us also making sure that we're on top of that, because again, like I said, we've got a big support group with the film that then when we would put something out, they would like share that like crazy and put it out to all their friends and then their friends, and that had that kind of snowball effect. So once Evolutionary Films had put something out and then we shared it, it kind of had that knock-on effect, which was great. But then we wanted to make sure that we were drip feeding things at a certain time as well. So I think it was quite 50-50. They had their marketing plan and sort of strategy that we worked alongside. So we tried to kind of sync with each other as much as possible in that side, but without just kind of leaving it down to them to take it, because, you know, it's our film and we want to make sure we're pushing it in the best way we can.
Totally. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, also, are you guys in constant contact with them? Like, let them know, hey, we're doing a Facebook, whatever, like a paid promotion or something this weekend. We want to know, did we hit okay doing that? Or does that ever come up?
I mean, yeah, the good thing about Evolutionary Films is they've got, you know, different people in different departments. So they have Nadia, who's kind of their marketing expert, their marketing person. So anything like that, you know, we'll speak to Nadia about, and if it's anything technical, we'll speak to Ryan, or anything on the creative side and connection, you know, we'll speak to Ross. So we knew who to go to and who to speak to about what part of that. So Nadia was in contact with me quite a lot just about the marketing plan and what the release time was and the time frame and what was being released and how that was doing. Or, for example, you know, a lot of the cast and Matt and myself, we've done quite a few sort of interviews and sort of podcast stuff, which has been great. And, you know, the film's had a great response, so that's been awesome. And sort of just, you know, coordinating that as well. So we've definitely been in communication daily.
Well, that's good.
You know, if not every other day or so. So yeah, definitely it's been a team effort.
Oh, that's good. Matt, I was wondering to your perspective on that. Like, and I know you were just talking about how, you know, you used to have just such a small amount of marketing, maybe just a poster or like, you know, a VHS cover at a video store back in the day. But like now it seems like as a director or producer, you're almost having to be some type of online personality and promote stuff in that way. I wonder if you could speak a bit to that about, you know, trying to market the film.
I've found a new person within myself over the last few weeks. 'Cause I'm sure Zara will tell you, I hardly post anything on Facebook or Instagram. I'll do a picture every 2 months or every 3 months. You know, I'm just not one of those people that has that kind of dominant online presence. And I just think one thing that Vic has opened my eyes to, and he's absolutely correct, is you've got to really promote yourself. You've got to really promote the film. You've got to really promote everybody involved in the film. It's so important that everybody cross promotes as well. So, you know, I've been obviously putting a lot of posts out for the film nearly every day.
Go Matt!
But you know, it's good because even some of my friends have been messaging me saying, "Hey, I've just seen your film for like the 100th time promoted on Facebook. And whoever's doing your marketing is doing a really good job. So, it's obviously getting out there and people are seeing it. And, I think the positive thing for us is the amount of views we had on the trailer after like a week. It was a lot, wasn't it? Wasn't it like 70,000 after a week?
That's amazing.
It's absolutely skyrocketed. But you're absolutely right. That's kind of snowball effect. But I think one of the things that we came into this production with as well is that as much as we're sort of all artists and creators and we want to produce something amazing, it's also, you got to treat it like a business as well. So,
right.
And that's where the marketing element comes in and what you need to do to make this a success or to sell. And it's pointless having an amazing film or a great film and it just sits on the shelf and nobody sees it. So I think it was very much in our minds to make sure we could get this out as much as possible so people can see it. Whether they like the film or not like the film, that's different. But we're getting the film out there. And it's like 7 times rule in it. Sometimes you've got to see something 7 times to be able to, or to buy something, or to feel like you're invested in that you want to go and buy that.
Right.
I think
the rule of 3, right? That's what people. Well, at least that's what I've heard. Right. Some people have to see something 3 different sources before they'll like it clues in for marketing.
Yeah. And sometimes 7 different times.
Yeah.
Or,
7, 100.
Yeah, so it's just seeing it again and again and then actually going, oh, you know what's this tribal film all about? Let me have a look at that now because I keep seeing it all over the place. And that's testament to everybody that's been sharing and liking and commenting and supporting the film. And that, again, just is testament to the sort of the teamwork and that camaraderie and family feel that we had in the production.
Well, that's all great, and I gotta say it's inspiring for myself to hear that you guys were able to pull something off that looks so expensive for under $100,000. So very much a congratulations to the 2 of you and to the whole team. I want to try something different on the podcast. I thought about this thing at the end, maybe asking indie filmmakers and other people in the industry just a series of just blanket questions. So if you would come with me on this journey, the first time trying this out, I've come up with just a handful to start out. I'm sure it'll get bigger or it'll go away. This will be the only time. Maybe it'll be a failure. So
before we start it. Can we just determine who's going to answer first? So Matt, you want to answer first?
Yeah, sure.
Good call. Yes.
Okay, there we go.
That'll give you some time to think. So
you like my plan?
Oh, it's a plan already. This.
So the first one is something about like a mystery about the film industry before you got into it, but now you understand it, and then something that's still a mystery to you about how something works.
A mystery about the film industry.
Yeah, something you maybe just didn't understand, how something got done, made, or what went into something, and then that, if you understand it now, and then something that's still a mystery about the business, quote unquote.
Well, for me, I'll go into the technical side. It's obviously how to shoot a fight scene and maximize your time efficiency on the day. When you first start out, you haven't got a clue because you're just putting the camera there and you're just trying to get, all right, we'll do a side shot. Okay, then we'll show the hero. Then we'll show the villain. Then what do we do next? So fight scenes, I think, are very, very tricky to film. You've got to really have that kind of brain or watch a lot of fight films to know how to shoot a fight film. Because obviously there's points in the fight where the characters suddenly get a punch in the face and they suddenly need makeup. So that's why you have to separate them into blocks. When I worked all those years ago on Underground, that was something that it taught me because obviously you were having to put it into blocks. You had to shoot a block at a time. You couldn't have, say, the first few moves are 3 punches and then 4 kicks. You couldn't then go into the next sequence because obviously the certain character hasn't got their makeup on with the blood where it's meant to be. So you'd always have to shoot that particular section. So for me, it was understanding the mechanics on how to shoot a fight scene and do it in the right kind of way, knowing which angles to do and in which order to do them. I think that's the best way to answer the question.
I can give you an answer because my mystery is all about, okay, we've made a film or we're going to make a film. how do we sell the film? Like, what are we going to do? Where do we start? So for me, it was about mainly the post-production and the deliverables of the film, and making sure that we ticked all the boxes and had all of the elements that we needed to go to Evolutionary Films, or, you know, whoever the distribution or sales agent would have been. But Evolutionary Films took it on, which was awesome. And just making sure that we did everything, or had everything that was asked of us to be able to deliver the film, to be able to get it out there to the different territories worldwide. So for me, that was kind of the mystery and a bit of a learning curve. And some of the elements of that I probably still don't understand, but that was very interesting for me, and definitely an eye-opener of what we need to do. Because when we go into the next film, now I have a much better understanding of what, okay, you know, we know how to shoot the film now. We know what's required in terms of the cast, locations, all this kind of stuff. But now we also have a much better understanding of what we do once the film's finished and where we take it from there.
The barriers are kind of broken down in a sense for that in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one I thought I'd ask. I know the advice for other filmmakers is kind of something that gets put out there a lot, but I thought I'd just spin that a bit, and I wonder what kind of advice you would have given yourself like 10 years ago, when you were however long ago before you got into the industry.
That's a very good question. What advice would I have done? I think I just would have kept filming and filming and filming and not have any gaps, you know, because when you have gaps and you have long periods of time, like a year or 2 years, you know, you have to almost reinvent yourself and go back to the drawing board and think how you shot the one a year ago. Whereas if you keep going and keep going, you know, technically you'll get better and better. I don't want to mention any famous director names, but there's some famous directors who started off doing naff films. You know, the first couple of films were rubbish because
Right.
they're trying to find their feet. They're just like, they've been given the chance, and just because they keep working, they get better and better and better, you know. And practice does make perfect, particularly when it comes to films. Obviously, you do have to have a certain degree of creativity, and there has to be some kind of talent there to do it and know what you want to do, for me, in terms of shots and how to film it and the angles and the framing. But at the same time, you know, I've really, really learnt over the years that you just got to keep as busy as you possibly can and not have any quiet periods. You know, so hopefully after Tribal, you know, it'd be great to get back as soon as possible, really, to keep going.
Absolutely. I think for me, kind of similar. I think we would have done this earlier, or I would have done this earlier. And you know, it's great when you get auditions and you get castings and you get put forward for roles and things like that. But I think for me, being more proactive and sort of having more belief in myself and, you know, my partner, and working together, that we can do this and we can achieve something. We can make a film. We can, you know, create this from concept and actually get it out there now. So I think for me, you know, when you have those doubts and things, well, can we actually do this? You know, all these other kind of questions, and, you know, maybe not that belief that you need. I think that's really important. I think probably would have done this sooner, and then we might have been on the third or fourth film. I don't know. But yeah, definitely. I think if you want to go ahead, do something, then I think, you know, have that belief and find a way to make it happen.
100%.
Yeah. I know people like to hear about successes in the industry, but I'm always intrigued by failures. So I wonder if you wanted to talk a bit about any type of failures you've had in the industry, as embarrassing as they are. But I know myself, having gone through things that have failed or fallen flat on their face, there's something to learn from it there, and we can all learn from each other in those types of scenarios. So I wonder if you guys could talk a bit about that. So,
yeah, I can definitely tell you one. I mean, obviously, reflecting on it now, I don't feel as bad, but at the time, obviously, it was devastating for a number of years for me. Going back to the year 2000, in 1999, I'd shot a TV pilot for a film in Liverpool called Mersey Cop, and it was a 45-minute TV pilot that I acted in, directed in, choreographed, did everything, edited it. You know, I was a bit of a one-man band at that point in time, and we showed it at a film festival in Liverpool. We had the commissioning editor of Channel 4 who was there, and he gave me his card. He said, I want you to phone me up on Monday because I'm really interested in this TV pilot, maybe turning it into a series. So I phoned him up the following week. He said, can you come down and meet me in London? I've got a couple of staff I'd like to introduce you to. And basically, just straight up, he introduced me to the production company that was going to produce this 10-part series of Mersey Cop. And it was going to be on at 11 o'clock at night. On the 4 later slot. Obviously in England, Channel 4s are one of our main channels. So, and the money was big. So obviously at the time I didn't have much money, and I thought, wow, this is really going to be something. Anyway, I was going to meetings for about 8 months. I was going down to London for about 8 months, and then suddenly it hit the skids because the commissioning editor left his post, and the person who came in looked at the projects in front of them. And then suddenly I get a letter in the post from Channel 4 saying we're one of the projects that's been rejected by the new commissioning editor.
Not even a phone call? They just sent you a letter?
Sent me a letter, yeah.
Brutal.
Sent me a letter, yeah. And I've still got the letter. I don't know why, but I've still got the letter. But at the time, I was devastated. You know, yeah, and it just goes to show you, even if it takes 20 years, you know, you can come back if you still believe in yourself.
Jeez.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yikes. That's a good one.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to top that, Matt. I think,
yeah, not many people know about that one as well.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, sort of, you know, sometimes when you think something's going to happen and you're pretty much 99% certain you've got the role or you've got the part, and then turns out you haven't, that's always very disappointing and very, you kind of take a step back and build yourself back up again kind of for the next role or the next casting audition. But I think sometimes when you put so much effort and work into a particular film and then the film doesn't come out as you sort of thought or, you know, hoped, or it's kind of edited, whatever, or, you know, the production company just want to get it out there, and they don't really have that heart or that passion to kind of create something really special and have of a high quality production level. They've just kind of put it out just because it's just business, and it's just, okay, well, you know, we've got this film, we're going to turn it out, there you go, it's done. There's kind of no heart or passion behind it. That hurts sometimes. But yeah, I think you know, I think for me personally as well, when I had my knee surgery, just not being able to kind of do the roles or the films that I really wanted to do at the time, just because I couldn't walk or still had crutches and stuff. I think it's kind of one of those things in this industry is quite cutthroat, isn't it? So if you're not kind of seen to be working, or you're not relevant, and then you're kind of forgotten, and then like Matt said, you kind of almost have to reinvent yourself and build yourself back up and network again and find those connections and things like that as well. So yeah, sometimes it can be quite heartbreaking, some of the stuff that happens, and you just got to find a way to get past that and move on. And there's always going to be something around the corner, but it's hard sometimes to sort of build yourself back up.
Yeah, like 100%. And I know, like myself, having had like some pretty decent failures in the past, that I was like, Jesus, how am I ever going to get out of this? But that's a good point to just, you know, get yourself off, dust it off and back in it. So sort of wrapping that segment up, I'm just curious to know what's next for you guys. And also, before I get onto that, I'm going to put it at the start of the podcast too. I'll add it to the intro, but where can people actually find the movie?
Okay, yeah, sorry, I forgot. I'm meant to be going first.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the moment, I believe it's available in Walmart in the USA. You can get it, I think it's on Blu-ray and DVD. It's also available on Amazon in the USA as well. We've had it released in Korea about a week or so ago. It's also out in the UK on all digital platforms such as Amazon, Sky Movies, YouTube. So yeah, it's there's obviously several other countries it's going to get released in, which I think Zara will know more about on these. I think Poland's one, is it? And Japan,
Turkey. Asia. There's quite a lot of territories going to come out in as well. But in the UK especially, it's on all digital platforms. So it's on our Sky Store, our Virgin Movies, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, iTunes, Google Play, Microsoft, all the main digital platforms. And then obviously, as Matt said, in the USA, it's Walmart and Amazon and stuff as well.
That's fun. Walmart. That's a good spot to have it.
Good.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that like in a bad way. Like a lot. I buy like so many movies from Walmart just based off the cover. Just at least I used to. Now I buy everything online. But
it's really funny in the States. Like our artwork is completely not our artwork, which was down to the distribution or the whatever they've decided they wanted to do. So they bought the film. So that's cool. But I think when I first saw it out there, I was like, I think I thought that the film had been ripped. And I was like, what is
just
this?
stolen.
Tribal, like, and then they sort of changed the artwork up and things like that. Which
that's me. That's me on the cover.
These people are not in the film. I don't know if I should.
I had a similar thing. We made an action movie about 10 years ago, and we got this like Japanese distribution deal, and they sent us like artwork of what the cover of the DVD was going to look like, and we're like, whoa, this is so cool. I don't know. We didn't see a cent from it, but we're like, I guess it's out there in Japan somewhere.
Well, we didn't even see this artwork. We only saw it because it was released. But that was funny. But whatever sells in America, whatever. I think it's because it's an action film. They've opted for a different sort of DVD cover. But I think one thing that I would like to have is a physical DVD with the tribal artwork on there as well. We've got quite a few people. Obviously, it's on all the digital platforms, and people watch stuff at home on their phone, tablets, computers, and that's kind of the way things are moving forward, isn't it? So DVD sales are kind of really down over here in the UK, but I would like to have some physical DVDs.
They don't go away though. Like the DVD sales, like I've talked about this before, but like people still want to have physical media, I think. Yeah. And there's, at least in the States, I don't know if this happens in the UK at all, but there's a fairly decent market that people do with libraries, because libraries will just buy a blanket amount of stuff just to have inventory of it. So I don't know if that ever happens in the UK at all, but...
Yeah, no, I don't think sadly that's not happening over here. I think we've got kind of limited resources now in terms of, I think the majority of the DVD stores and Blu-ray stores have closed. You've just got them in supermarkets like Asda, which is obviously an affiliate, isn't it, of Walmart. So in England, it's called Asda, which is a supermarket here. It's got groceries, it's got clothes, and it also has a small little section on DVDs and Blu-rays. And it's usually just the top 20 or the top 30, something like that. So, it obviously has that quite eclectic bracket. So, you've got obviously all your named films in there, such as your Doctor Strange, with Zara in,
right,
and movies like that. So I think it can be quite hard to break into those markets as an independent film, but also online. They're still selling physical copies. So particularly like Jackie Chan, he's having a bit of a resurgence over here because there's companies like 88 Films and Eureka who are re-releasing his films, but they're all based on online sales, but they are physical copies, but you won't find them in the shops. You have to order them through Amazon or through, HMV or whatever outlets we have in this country. So the physical media is definitely still there for collectors. But what they tend to do is they limit the units to about 2,000 to 3,000. It could be a 2,000 press or a 3,000 press.
Right.
And that's how many units they will do. So obviously all the fans rush out, pre-order them, and those 3,000 units or whatever are already pre-sold. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, that's a whole other, conversation topic, is just how you sell that, and that's just trying to get your numbers up too with making your money back for something like that, especially since you said it was sort of private investment. So like you want to be able to pay back investors and show like you can do stuff like that. But we'll move on a bit. I did want to talk about festivals with you guys. Did you guys get any film into any festivals, or did that just kind of go away because COVID hit?
We did get into a few festivals. It's been accepted and nominated for Best Actress, Best Actor, Best Music Score, Best Film, Best Action Film. So it's got into a few festivals. But I think a lot of the film festivals have suffered, haven't they, as well with COVID, and some of them have either sort of gone online or they've sort of postponed the event as well. So I think the sort of COVID situations hit all different areas of the sort of filmmaking business.
Yeah, it's tough right now, because it's like, I know like myself, like some shorts I made were in festivals during COVID, but it's just like it all went online, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's not as fun. Like I do sort of like going to a festival when I can, and like, you know, interacting with other people that make stuff and just talking to other people, you know, how'd you make this, how'd you figure it out, whatever. But now it seems like you can't really do that as much, and when they go online, I don't feel like you're watching other people's stuff as much, you know? Like people will promote their own thing, but like I'm not gonna just, you know, middle of my Saturday watch some random stuff online. I don't know. Like hockey's back on, I'm watching that, right? Like, so
Who do you support, can I ask?
Oh, like team? I mean, like I cheer for the Montreal Canadiens, but kind of the thing here a lot of people do, it's like we just kind of want a Canadian team to win again, the Stanley Cup, right? So it's like the cup hasn't been raised in Canada by a Canadian team for like a long time. So
how are the Oilers doing? Because I know
they're out. They're out.
Oh
yeah.
Are you a hockey?
All that money they spend on McDavid.
To be honest, I only know about the Oilers because part of my family is from Canada. My uncle, my cousins, they all live in Edmonton, so they're big Oilers fans.
That makes sense.
So, yeah.
Alberta's beautiful. Yeah, Edmonton's kind of cool. But yeah, so anyways, what's next for you guys? What do you guys have next planned, or what do you want to do next? Talk a bit about that.
Well, I think for me, obviously, there's a couple of possibilities in terms of scripts that I'd like to do. Obviously, I'd love to work again with Zara in the very near future. So hopefully something like that might happen soon would be good. But I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give too much away. But there's definitely ones in the pipeline that I'm hoping will take off. But I just don't think they're going to take off this year. I think it's probably going to be next year because of the situation. The insurance costs are just crazy at the moment. And the fact that you've got to have COVID security officers and stuff on set, and they're watching your every move, and you know, it's going to be very tricky, I think, for this year unless you're a big budget.
They're saying
big
like
budget movie,
like $1 million to add to the budget on some of the bigger Hollywood stuff for COVID.
And the rest. Wow. I've heard it's a huge amount. I've heard we're talking 20% on the budgets on some. Yeah, it could. Obviously, surely it's got to get less. With they'll work out procedures on how to make things better, but at this moment in time, it's still kind of a touchy area.
Yeah. So is it going to be like martial arts? You want to do like another action sort of piece?
Love to. Yeah, I'd love to do a full-blown martial arts film. Obviously, keeping it in the action genre would be great. But to be honest, I never thought I'd do a horror film, and I did enjoy doing the part horror, part action. I did enjoy it because you could play with the suspense part quite a bit as well. So, I would love to go obviously back and do a horror again at some point. But for me personally, I love martial arts. So whatever I do, I'm always hoping to have quite a heavy martial arts content in it.
You're not worried? Like, I always worry about like, oh, I shouldn't make too many of this genre or whatever genre, like about being pigeonholed as, I only make comedy or whatever.
I don't mind being pigeonholed. I'll just keep doing them. I'm fine with that.
Fair enough.
I'm totally fine.
Fair enough.
Do what you like. That's important.
Yeah.
You gotta do what you like. If you don't like doing it, it's no fun, is it? So hopefully, same as Matt. So I've got a couple of things sort of in the pipeline, but one particular project is called Unit 19. It's in pre-production right now, which is kind of post-apocalyptic Mad Max meets kind of Terminator type things, which is really cool, action sci-fi, and another film which is kind of an action thriller called The Asset. So there's a couple of things that are definitely on the table right now, and then some other possibilities coming up. And I'm also presenting a martial art documentary, which is cool. So I get to kind of tour the UK and tell different martial art stories, different sort of backgrounds, and I get to kind of visit different martial arts schools and masters and grandmasters. So that's really interesting, something I'm looking forward to doing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But I think, with the whole COVID situation, 2020 is kind of written off a little bit.
Will you be appearing in Doctor Strange too?
No.
No. I saw on your IMDb, obviously, you're listed as the brunette zealot, which is coincidentally would be my rap name, actually. But
cool.
no. Do you want to talk a bit about that, or is that just kind of just you were involved in the stunts, or?
No, so I was myself and my good friend Katrina Durden, she was the brunette zealot. I was the brunette zealot, she was the blonde zealot. We all got sort of descriptive names. So initially at the beginning of filming, we all had actual character names, but then they just turned descriptive. So Scott Adkins' character was the strong zealot, and then Alice Safi, his character, was the tall zealot. So there was the brunette zealot. So we were basically the four main zealots in the film, and we were kind of Mads Mikkelsen's or Caecilius's as kind of right-hand men, if you like, in
the henchmen, the baddies.
And so it was cool playing a baddie, and we kind of are there the whole way through the film, which was really awesome. So we were kind of the role was actually we were the cast. It was an acting role, but it was also stunt role. It was kind of a dual role, which was really cool. So we got to do all our own stunts, and we got to kind of work with the stunt department, but then we were cast as well, so we had all the benefits of that. So that was really amazing. And the zealot, so Katrina and I, the blonde and the brunette zealot, lasted all the way through until Doctor Strange sent us to the dark dimension, and in the comics I think we turn into mindless ones. Unfortunately I don't think we're coming back in Doctor Strange 2, but a prequel, they can do a backstory, about how the zealots, came to follow Caecilius and the whole story about that. So there
you go. Start talking about it. Maybe it'll happen. No, that's cool. I know, I figured that was kind of the role it was involved. I know, around here, Toronto and stuff like that, a few friends, they'll pop up every now and then in something big, just because it's smaller here, right? So it's just by way of it being a smaller a smaller place, and there's not a lot of people. It's there's my friend in the background of that movie. Okay, well, look, guys, I had a great time having you guys on the podcast. I genuinely enjoyed hearing about how you guys made everything. And again, I will say it is inspiring to see other people making stuff on a cheap budget and making it look very expensive. So appreciate you both coming on the podcast and sharing with us, and for coming down the road of my new questions that I'm asking, and being patient with that. So appreciate that. And just I guess let everybody know where they can find you guys on social media now that you're posting so much. And that's it.
No problem. Yeah. For me, I'm on Instagram as Kung Fu Matty with 2 Y's at the end, and also on Facebook as well. You can Google MJR Pictures or just put in my name, and you should be able to find some of the social media accounts.
Kung Fu Matty. Why has he got 2 Y's, Matt?
Because I unfortunately forgot my password and I couldn't log back in, and I must have deleted the email address I associated it with. So so it looks like I've got an imposter account, so people are wondering which one's me. So I had to put official account on my account, and then I had my close friend saying, "Why have you put official account? That means you're kind of famous now or something," And it's no, it's nothing to do with that.
That's funny.
I'm on all the social medias at Zara Phythian. And also, if you guys want to follow Tribal, you can check out the IMDb page and leave a review and a rating for us. But on Facebook, it's Tribal Get Out Alive as well.
That's great, guys. And everybody you guys should check out the film as well. And the film did answer one question I've always had about zombies. Do they sleep? And you guys answered that question in the film for me, so I appreciate that.
Thanks for having us, Adam. It's been real fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adam. It's been great.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at Lost Commentary, on Instagram at Raiders of the Lost Commentary, and like us on Facebook.
I'll be back.